Are we on?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
It says off air.
Oh, now I got the message. All right. Hello and welcome to the Comic Book Communicast, the official podcast of the Google Plus comic book community. This is issue number 60 for the week of March 29th, 2015. I'm Justin Beeson. I'm joined by co-host Paul Christopher
Good evening, everybody.
and Sarah Evans. We had some technical difficulty this week, so I'm on my mobile device as well as Sarah, so we'll do the best we can. Every episode, each of us chooses our favorite comic of the week to talk about, and then we'll discuss any significant comic-related news and TV for the week. And just a reminder, you can find all of our episodes at comicbookcommunicast.com, as well as links for the podcast on YouTube, iTunes, and RSS. All right, let's get to it. This is a Pick of the Week section where each of us chooses our favorite comic, and then we'll briefly go over the rest of the books that we picked up this week. So, Paul, what was your pick?
My pick this week was Wytches number 5 from Scott Snyder, Jock. That's his whole name. He's a mononym, so like Cher, so Jock. Matt Hollingsworth, Clem Robbins, and David Brothers. So, if you guys aren't reading Wytches, it's terrifying. It's a terrifying comic. Do not read this book. The dogs are great. Do not read this book before bed. And so Scott Snyder, at the back of each issue, has been kind of like doing like these essays explaining where the story of Wytches came from, and it's basically the distillation of like parental fears about being able to protect your child, and that's really what's going on here. Is our main character's father. Can't remember his name, but his daughter's name is Sailor, and so like they've moved to this town to get away from something bad that happened back in their old town, and like he and his wife are trying to work things out after like I think he was cheating. His wife's in a wheelchair. Their daughter Sailor has like emotional issues, but anyway, so she gets kidnapped by these witches. And the witches aren't like, Wicked Witch of the West. They're not green. They don't wear pointy hats. They don't ride brooms. They are evil, scary-looking motherfuckers is what they are.
Like Hansel and Gretel.
They live underground, and what it is they'll grant you wishes, and in return you pledge someone to them, and they become like their sacrifice, and they eat them. So somebody, we don't know who, has pledged Sailor, and Sailor has been taken. And this issue, her dad, like, no joke, suits up and goes down in the ground after her, and it's just really, really well done because they're contrasting like a flashback with a similar sort of situation where the father and daughter are at odds and working. He's working to reconcile with her, and with the present where he is doing whatever he has to do to rescue her, and it's genuinely scary because that he's having to go underground. So for me, with claustrophobia, that's bad enough. But that like these creatures are down there around every corner, and he's got to find his way to his daughter, who he doesn't even know if she's alive or dead at this point, and while avoiding them, and then get them both out. So it's very visceral. As a new parent, hits me right in the gut. But it's just overall. I mean, Scott Snyder, you can't go wrong with him. The writing is fantastic, the art is fantastic. The only thing is, I keep waiting for it to go back to the preview issue, and I'm like, wait, where's the story with that? But apparently, I think that they just kind of like wrote that as like just a taste. It has nothing to do with our current plot line. I'm like, what happened to the guy? What happened to that guy?
Yeah, I think that preview issue was just something to like get the feel of the universe, not really intended to like tie into the story.
Yeah, I agree now, but 5 issues I've been waiting and waiting and waiting.
Right.
At this point, I've given up. So, and so in the back of the comic, this one, he was talking about. And I just learned this actually a few days before I read this comic, that like one of his first jobs was working at Disney World, as
Oh my
an
God.
actor. Like he was like one of the people who were in the different costumes and stuff. And
Oh
he was
my
saying that
God.
his favorite one was Buzz Lightyear. Excuse me. One day, as well, he was running around as Buzz Lightyear. This kid came up and was like, hanging out with him and hugging on him, and then they realized that like his handler asked, "Where's your mother?" And he's like, "I don't know." So, they go through the process of like, missing kid thing. His mother comes running up, and he remembers that like, she like just started shaking him and like smacked him, and he's like, how could you do that? How could you run off? And now he's talking about like as a parent, like, I understand that fear. I understand, I've never hit my kids, but there have been times where I've wanted to, because of this panic. And he was saying that it's, what's causing that is you don't want your children to ever realize that you can't protect them, that you can't save them from anything. And well, I agree with that completely. I would say that I think another part of it is just selfishness, because as any parent will, attest, it's like, your kids are like your greatest vulnerability, and and so like in a situation like that, you're imagining the worst, and you're imagining like the sort of pain that will be inflicted on you if something happens to this kid. And I think that's part of the anger, is just this kind of selfish feeling of like, knowing that if something ever were to happen to one of your children, that you would never be the same. It would just irrevocably break you. And it's like this, and I think that's part of what the anger is. It's like, how could you let me experience this panic and this pain? And it comes across very, very well in the book. And so, highly recommend this book. Looks like we're coming to the end of the first arc, so you can expect the probably the trade out the next few months or so, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely worthwhile. If you like horror comics, if you like really good writing, then I highly, highly recommend this book.
Yeah, that last sequence you were talking about was pretty great.
Yeah.
Interspersing the flashbacks and the current art. He did that, and I feel like he did that last issue too, with the I forgot what the current story was, but when her dad was on the Ferris wheel and she was
Yes.
climbing up, and he was
Yeah.
kind of yelling at her drunk. Um, yeah, so he does that really well. Um, what do you think about the coloring on the book? Because I know I saw some people that didn't really like it. I love it because Hollingsworth he does like some like splatter stuff, and then he overlays it over the whole comic, and it gives it this kind of like eerie, just unsettling feel. But I was reading where some people weren't huge fans of it.
No, I love it. I love the whole book. I think that they really, everybody's come together to set a very distinctive tone, including the art. Like, I'm a big fan of like Jim Lee stuff for my superheroes, but like that wouldn't work for this book. I think that the way that they're doing it is exactly perfect and exactly right.
Cool. All right, so that was Witches number 5. So Sarah, what was your pick of the week?
My pick this week was Jim and the Holograms, #1, and I've been looking forward to this series for a really, really long time. Not due to nostalgia or anything. I never watched the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad TV show when I was a kid. That was a little before my time, but I really like the idea of taking the series and recreating it into something else that, I mean, everything else is being rebooted for nostalgia, capitalism nowadays, right? So we can make some money off of this and remind people of their childhood, sure. And in comics, what's been happening in the past few years, it looks like, has been people taking old series and kind of weeding out the things that we now, like, in perspective see, like, oh, that was really cheesy, that was overdone, this is now this trope and nobody wants to see it, and basically making these series better for the workshopping that they're doing to make it appealing to modern audiences, and probably to flesh it out a little bit more as a series. And so, I mean, this issue 1 obviously doesn't get too much into it, but right away you see huge glaring differences between the cheesy little TV show and what they're trying to do with this series. It looks like essentially they're keeping what Jem and the Holograms should have been at its core in the late 80s, which was, okay, you've got this girl power franchise, you know, it's a self-insert sort of thing, mostly geared towards young girls for self-confidence, and, you know, it's got a lot of cheesy, like, extra feminine stuff. Everything's pink, everything's pretty, and stuff like that. Probably less now to sell toys than it was back then. But there's some things that are drastically different that make the series actually palatable, such as the fact that they've given the leading character, Jerica Benson, who can transform into this superhero pop star Jem, actual character flaws, instead of essentially what the series was before, was that she was Barbie. She was some young 20-something, completely gorgeous, glamorous daughter of this guy who was a brilliant scientist and left her all this magical technology that could do whatever she wanted. And she had a younger sister who followed her orders without question. She had a gorgeous boyfriend, and she ran an orphanage or a foster home for young to teenage girls, which gave lots and lots and lots of opportunities for self-insert episodes where their childlike audience could imagine themselves in this world. And always with the hot cars, always with, you know, saving the day, being the prettiest girls, and, oh, there's the other mean girls, but, you know, they're the bad guys. It was all very, very two-dimensional and just not very well thought out at all. They've given her stage fright in this one. She's not at all confident. She doesn't necessarily have financial things that are going to crumble around her ears if she can't figure out a way to raise money or become a rock star. But she does have, I don't know, the dreams and ambitions of her younger sister and of her 2 friends, who all have personalities now and actually come into conflict with each other in, I don't know, in creative, readable ways. And it turns out that the revelation of Synergy, her father's hologram machine, towards the end of the issue, where we actually get some of the plot development, such as it is, or as it has ever been in Jem, but this series has me optimistic. It's still very much a plot device, you can tell, but it happens in a refreshing sort of, not exactly a fairy godmother sort of way, but in a way that inspires something in the main character where she's like, okay, this is a catalyst, I can take control of my life. And you see her in the course of a few pages go from this ultra introverted girl who writes a lot of, you know, music and is like talented, but she doesn't want to get up in front of a crowd, who's terrified of letting her younger sibling down and her friends, into someone who's like, well, they're not going to see that it's me. They're not going to be looking at me. So this like qualifies it in my mind. So I can do this now. And if I can do this, I can do anything. And it's kind of like she goes mad with power over the course of a couple panels. And it's really adorable. And I kind of am really interested in seeing where this series is going. Oh, and the art is magnificent. It's Sophie Campbell. It's adorable just throughout. And I've been excited for the series, like I said, not for nostalgia, but mostly because the front cover of the of the main cover that they've had out for months and months, ever since the solicit, you can already tell that they're doing body diversity with the different characters. Like one of their friends, Aja, on bass, she's a little heavier set and she's shorter and she's got more of a pear-shaped body. And honestly, their drummer kind of reminds me a little bit of Dee from Rat Queens. Maybe it's just because of the purple getup and everything, but it's a very cute series, and I definitely recommend it if, like me, you like your box to be full of fun, lighthearted sort of things that provide entertainment.
Cool. Okay, so as probably the only one in this group old enough to have watched the show when it first came out, there's only one question that I need answered. Is she still truly, truly outrageous?
She's significantly outrageous. Her friends' outfits are definitely outrageous. You can see on the very first panel of the very first issue where she is a character who's completely not comfortable with putting herself out into the spotlight because her sister Kimber, who they kept, and her two other friends who are in this band are all set up to shoot this video for a contest entry, and which is another nice thing. It's less of a silver spoon. Oh, my father also owned a record company in addition to being a brilliant scientist. What the hell? Sort of thing, and more of a, we're trying to get to the top from the bottom. But her friends and her sister in these incredible over-the-top, basically like they are on the front cover of the issue, these ridiculous stage get-ups, and she's standing there with a little, short little blonde bob and her little indie skirt, and she's very quiet and bent in on herself and very alone looking in the middle of the stage where everyone else is taking up a lot of space. And I think that's a really great way that the artists set that up, and obviously the writer as far as direction, of course. Writer's Kelly Thompson. But yeah.
Now, you seem to know a lot about the TV series, but you say you haven't watched it. So, I mean, did you just do a lot of...
No, I didn't watch it when it was on TV because, I was way too young, and my mother kept us on Disney Channel as long as she could. But, no, I think everybody has gone back and at least looked it up on YouTube just for nostalgia factor, I guess. And
are the Misfits still in it?
Damn. Are the what?
Are the
No,
Misfits
I have not seen any. Well, yeah, the Misfits are definitely still in it. They were not in this issue, but the video that they're shooting, apparently the Misfits are already an established rock group because they're shooting a contest video for the Misfits Versus, which they don't really elaborate too much on, which I appreciate because it wasn't just a ton of exposition right at the beginning, when chances are a lot of people who are reading this already know the building blocks of the old series. So presumably, yeah, they're there. They're going to come into contact with them imminently. But, yeah.
Also, are you familiar with the live-action movie that they are working on?
Live-action movie for Jem and the Holograms?
Yes.
No, I was not aware of that. Is that your news item for today?
No, but I was wondering...
When was this out?
It's not coincidental that they've started the comic book up right as they are finishing up production on this movie. And
oh my God, I had so much faith in them.
It's been confirmed by the producers of the movie that two of the holograms are in a relationship with each other. So I'm wondering if that is going to transfer over into the comic book.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Well, unless they mean the two sisters having a sisterly relationship, then yeah, no, I really hope so. Actually, I do recall an article that said yes, canon queer characters, so looking forward to that too. I just did not know about the movie. Oh man, so I immediately take back everything I said about this hopefully being less, less directed the way that it is being for greedy, entrepreneurship purposes, because they probably are going to try to put things in here that will be easy to mass market to an adoring, they hope, fan base. That we'll see about that.
All right, so that was Jem and the Holograms #1. So my pick of the week this week, I haven't read all my comics this week because I haven't had a chance to get to the shop yet, but there's some strong ones that I did read. And so my pick was Star Wars Darth Vader #3. This continues to be the best of the 3 Star Wars comics that are coming out right now. So this is by Kieran Gillen and Salvador Ioraka, or LaRocca. Oh, that's an L. LaRocca. So this series is following Darth Vader basically after the Battle of Yavin and losing the Death Star, and it's kind of his trying to gain back what he had lost, because in the movies you never saw the fallout from that, because that's a pretty big failure, getting the Death Star destroyed, and it kind of picks up with Vader still just being in charge of everything. So the concept of this comic is that the Emperor's kind of demoted him. So we're following Darth Vader as he's gathering resources to spy on the Empire and to find out some other stuff because he doesn't have that as much power. So we're introduced to a new character who's named Dr. Afra, and kind of thrown in the middle of her on like a heist. She's infiltrating some building to get a microchip. She gets caught, and then she's about to get arrested or whatever, and then Darth Vader comes in and destroys everything, and it's like, hey, I need you. So we go to them talking, and she's kind of like, she's a bit of a Darth Vader fangirl. Like she kind of like geeks out when talking to him. Is like, oh, you want me to find stuff, which is kind of an interesting dynamic because we haven't really seen that anybody who's been like, a fan of what the Empire's doing, or I mean, not so much of what the Empire's doing, but of the person. So we find out that the microchip she was trying to steal is to activate these two droids, a protocol droid and an astromech droid, so basically like a C-3PO and an R2-D2. But these ones, however, were on like an experimental AI, and they're evil. So basically they both want to just murder everything. So there's some funny bits of like when they activate the R2 unit, all of a sudden he just pops out with all these guns and cannons and stuff, and then you have the protocol droids like, no, these are our masters. No doing that. Plus, you don't want to clean up that mess. Like, there's little jokes and stuff. So, and then you find out that Darth Vader wants this Dr. Afra to procure him, battalion of droids so that he can have some troops that'll obey him without questioning. And that's basically it. And it's really good. And it's, like I said, it's an interesting dynamic to see Darth Vader and having like a normal conversation with somebody, even though he's still pretty menacing. But this Dr. Afra is kind of just treating him like just a normal person, and kind of out of line at the same time and respecting him. But it's a cool thing that they're exploring, and if out of any of the Star Wars books, if you're going to pick up one, you definitely should read this one. The art is it's standard comic book art, but it's the likenesses are there, the action, everything's very fluid, the facial expressions are amazing, and like the story, the art's the best out of the three books as well. So yeah, I definitely recommend picking that up. So that was Darth Vader number 3. Paul, you Star Wars fan? You have any interest in reading the Star Wars comics?
I have a few things to say about this. One, there you go, Dark Horse. Now that people can actually read it, available on Comixology, so people can buy the freaking comic instead of your crappy proprietary app. So screw you, Dark Horse. 2, Robot Chicken already covered the aftermath of the explosion of the Death Star. That is the definitive version, as always the version that I will see in my mind's eye. And 3, I have a hard time buying the whole premise of Vader being demoted.
Why is it too expensive?
Around. I mean, like he is the Emperor's. He's like the only surviving Jedi, right? And, he's the Emperor's Padawan. There's only 2 Sith at a time, so he's gonna want him close. Not to mention, he wasn't in charge of the Death Star to begin with. So, like, I'm sure it's a good comic, but I have a hard time just with the general premise. So, and plus, Darth is a certified badass. Like, he's not going to put up with that shit from anybody. So, whatever.
Not if they revoke his certification for getting the Death Star blown up.
Yeah, I'll force choke the whole planet. He's not gonna, so.
Well, they definitely do a good job of showing him to be a badass. Like, in that first scene where he comes in and just wrecks everything.
Yeah. It's
pretty great. Like, just within, I think it's like 1 page, and just the panels just show him just decimating everybody. And then the last panel is just Darth Vader in the middle of, a bunch of bodies. And then, I forget what he says, but something like, Dr. Afra, I have need of your assistance, or whatever, your skills, or whatever he says. It's pretty great.
Come with me if you want to live.
Something like that. So those were So those are our picks of the week. Now we go over our other polls. Everybody, we have a weekly post in the community called the CBC Poll Box, where you can post the books that you pick up each week or make your own post and hashtag it with that hashtag. So what else did you guys pick up? Paul?
All right, so this week I picked up Aquaman, issue number 40. All right, Aquaman, still a great book. Batman and Robin, issue number 40. So I was a little scared about the whole Robin, superpowered Robin thing. Luckily, it didn't last long. They wrapped it up. It was a very cute, very sweet story. You know, I admit I was wrong. I enjoyed this book. Batman Eternal number 51. All right, Dream Police number 6. This is a great book. You should be reading this book. Suicide Risk number 23. This is a ridiculous book. This should be getting way more press than it should. It should be uttered in the same sentences as East of West and Saga. It's a fantastic book. Why aren't you reading this book? I don't understand. And The Bunker, issue number 10.
All right. Sarah, how about you? Did you pick up anything else this week?
I did not. No, I recently did a mass culling of my pull list, and I know Red Sonja is in my box still. I've not gotten to read that yet. Honestly, it's weird. Well, not only is it pretty formulaic to Gail Simone at this point, when her series kind of start to lose interest with me, where there's not much of a plot happening, and I don't know, she tends to focus on a lot of character development stuff, but it doesn't come across as very effective. And I'm mostly cross-referencing this with the end of the end of Secret Six. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty much done with Red Sonja. I liked it for what it was, but I'm so done. And I think that's it. Yeah. Actually, which allows me to ask, Paul, because you said you got Batman Eternal, are you aware of the Stephanie Brown drama that went down and anything like that? Stephanie Brown, Harper Row?
I haven't read it yet. No spoilers.
Within the issue?
Okay.
Or like in the past?
No, within the internet.
Oh, no.
How her very vocal, very
forum?
passionate fandom has rightly, in my opinion, stated that they basically assigned her personality to Harper Row as an excuse to make Stephanie really like wimpy and background noise.
Actually, though, it turns out Stephanie was the one who cracked this whole thing open. She knew it before Batman did, so yeah. She's
trying so hard not to do spoilers. Dang it, Justin! Read your comics.
Yeah,
Hey, I was busy visiting you guys. Like I didn't have a chance to get to the
They
shop.
came out on Wednesday. Whatever.
So. But yeah, I have a hard time with all of these new superheroes anyway, because you know how I feel about this. It's like, how on earth? First of all, like, how on earth is Stephanie going to be a superhero? Okay, she's had zero training.
Excuse me.
All of a sudden, she pulls on this outfit, and
Paul, you don't want the fandom to find the Communicast, Paul.
She had supervillain training.
People who come out of freaking nowhere, who have done absolutely no training. You know,
I'm not affiliated with this man. He does not speak for me, and we do not share opinions in any way. Stephanie Brown fandom.
I'm not saying she's a bad character. I'm just saying it's completely unrealistic. She puts on an outfit one day, and now she's in the middle of this giant riot, and taking out bad guys. They're just no.
Actually, the thing is that Paul's not feeling well tonight, and he's taking a lot of cough medicine, so you probably shouldn't take him at face value. I'm going to get Michelle on here sometime, or just on the phone with you, and she will tell you for approximately 6 hours the entire history of Stephanie Brown as a character in DC Comics before the spoiler, as the spoiler, during her brief stint as Robin, as Batgirl, and post-reboot, and what every single specific character and plot development choice that she's been involved in a well-written canonical instance where the writer wasn't bullshit or the editorial wasn't forcing them into something, and why that has significance for her personally and to the fandom as a whole, and makes Stephanie Brown the most amazing character in the universe. And that's what's going to happen. So if you see Michelle coming towards you, you should probably evacuate the premises immediately.
All right.
All right. So books that I picked up: Batman Eternal, Django Zorro #5. Everybody should read this if you're a fan of either characters. It's amazing. It's just a fun Western, and it's exactly what you think it would be. Guardians of the Galaxy #25, Legendary Star-Lord 10, and Nova 28 are all Black Vortex crossover books. This event is so stupid. It had a good premise, but it should have been 5 issues instead of 12 or 13 or whatever the crossover is going to be. Multiversity Ultra Comics #1. This is the comic that has appeared in the other comics in this series as the cursed comic, and I think it's also the penultimate chapter of it. It was good, but there's a lot going on there, and I think I need to give it another read. New Avengers #32, Castaways #1. This is the latest time travel comic that seems to be popping up everywhere, and this one's from Matt Kent. It was all right. Uncanny X-Men #32, Walking Dead #139, and the Wicked Divine #9. This comic, it's all right. I probably would have dropped off, but I think it's almost over. I think they're only doing 11 or 12 issues, so I'll finish it out, and then I'll be done. And then Wytches #5. So those are my books, and like I said, you can post the books that you pick up each week and discuss them at #CBCPollbox in the comic book community. Time for Issues of the Week, where we choose a news story, TV episode, comic issue, or anything else that stood out to us this week. So, Paul, what was your issue this week?
So my issue this week was the announcement that Lazarus is being developed for television. The comic book I've been telling you guys to read for months and months and months and years now.
I'll just watch the show.
Exactly.
The same thing.
Exactly.
High school leads me to believe that I can get away with that.
Yep. So Legendary Entertainment has secured the rights, and they are working on it. And Greg Rucka is going to write the pilot, and hopefully be very involved with the overall storyline for the whole series. It hasn't been picked up by a network yet. It hasn't been picked up by a network yet. So fingers crossed it belongs somewhere on FX or AMC or Netflix. Those are the ones I'm hoping for. Or even better yet, if God smiles upon us, HBO. Although HBO can be a little finicky because sometimes things go well, sometimes they pull the trigger too soon. So I think Netflix is the safest place. I think that they would give it longer chance to work itself out if it doesn't become an instant hit the way it should be. But either way, it needs to be on a big boy station, not CBS or something garbage like that.
Yeah, I don't see HBO picking up because it's
popular,
pretty.
And honestly, Lazarus is one of the. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say I don't see HBO picking it up, just because it's a pretty high concept sci-fi, and I can't think of any sci-fi shows on HBO.
Yeah, HBO hasn't done sci-fi, so maybe that's one reason why they wouldn't pick it up. I mean, they're paying all this money on Game of Thrones, and look how well that's doing. But that's a good point.
Yeah, well, I mean, in general, sci-fi doesn't hit with mainstream audiences on TV. Yeah. Nobody's really found that magical TV show that gets picked up and stays. Besides, since
5 seasons, we've got 5 seasons of Falling Skies that says otherwise.
Clamoring for Firefly to return.
Yeah.
Years later.
But yeah, in general though, you don't see a lot of sci-fi thing. But you're right, Falling Skies. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and Sci-Fi Channel is actually really starting to turn itself around. I wouldn't want it to go over to Sci-Fi Channel because they haven't gotten it down quite perfectly yet. But Helix is kicking ass. You know, it's still like it's like a B plus Helix. And another show that they have, what is it? Oh, 12 Monkeys, also like a strong B plus.
So Sarah, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, from what you've been saying to us all this time, Lazarus sounds like one of the most conceptually interesting, not quite zombie, but technically undead TV show, or I mean, sci-fi story concepts that I've heard for a long time in a market that's completely freaking flooded with zombie narratives. So, I mean, I think if anything deserves it, it's probably Lazarus.
I think Sarah has Lazarus confused with Revival, which is another comic I've been talking all this awesomeness about.
Oops.
Lazarus takes place in this dystopian future where the economy has collapsed and it's in this like neo-feudal system that's run by the whole world is run by 19 powerful families, and each family has like the super bioengineered assassin badass called their Lazarus. And
the worst part of this entire situation is that if I'd read the comic like you'd been telling me to all this time, I wouldn't have just done that live.
Yes, and this one it particularly focuses on the Carlisle family and their Lazarus named Forever, who is just like battling it out with for like title of the most badass female in comics right now. And the beautiful thing is that there's a lot of competition for that title. So she's a certified badass, and it's a really good comic. Rucka is an incredible writer. They've done like in the back of the books, they've fleshed out the world a lot. They've got like a lot of like ads for like different companies in the world, and like like their insignias for their military and all. And but yeah, so I didn't realize that Rucka was behind the comic that became the movie Whiteout. So apparently Rucka has not had the best track record, brief as it is, with Hollywood translating his stuff, because by all accounts the comic book was good, but that movie was just so incredibly bland and boring. So
I don't even know what that movie is.
yeah, you'll have to look it up. It's the concept. If I sit here and I tell you about it, it sounds like a great movie. It's a murder mystery in Antarctica, and it's like on paper it sounds awesome. And I haven't had a chance to read the comic, but I've the reviews that I've read of it have said that it was really good. And they actually did 2 series. But the movie was just super bland.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
All right. So, Sarah, what was your issue of the week? Or issue of the last couple weeks, but we haven't had a show.
Sorry about that. No, just kind of a quick recap, because this is, as fast as comic news is coming up the last couple months, this is old news by now. I just wanted to mention briefly the controversy with the Joker month happening in June, and all of the amazing art that we're seeing for these solicits, and a lot of it is completely hilarious. The Batgirl cover so much because they've once again decided to capitalize on the Killing Joke being one of the most famous, I mean, no matter how you feel about it, one of the most definitive Batman stories of all time, and just go ahead and have the art for the Batgirl issue for June be a direct reference to that, with the Joker being violently and physically menacing towards a bound, gagged, and sobbing Batgirl, not Barbara Gordon this time, Batgirl, and it was extremely inappropriate, especially given the context that they're trying to market this series to the audience that they are now, because when you're trying to draw in a teenage to young adult female audience with this character who you're marketing as, she's a millennial, she's relatable, she's a superhero, she's fun, she's badass, buy her stuff. And then you throw something like that at them where the Joker, who has already done these terrible things to the character of Barbara Gordon, and seemingly, despite the fact that they've retconned it all and knocked it out of continuity, they're still willing to go back to it and make cute little jokesy references at it for, for recognition or whatever they think that was going to accomplish. Where he's touching her and she's crying, and it's a terrible, terrible, terrible cover. It was honestly just completely disgusting. And the artist as well, Raphael Albuquerque, honestly, I've loved his stuff in the past. So has Michelle. He was on Blue Beetle pre-reboot, back when the character of Jaime Reyes was first being fleshed out, and they were taking an incredible risk on creating this new young superhero, who, of course, you haven't seen in years now, ever since they completely screwed up his series post-reboot by trying to make him extremely dark, when the entire premise of his series was very lighthearted and fun and family-oriented, and Raphael Albuquerque's art fit that feeling exactly. It was a little more cartoonish than you'll see most of the time with the DC House style, but it's very recognizable as his stuff. And actually, a fan art campaign started in the middle of that, as we'll often do in the DC fandom, especially in the Bat Family side of things, and especially with the female Bat Family side of things, Stephanie Brown. But basically, people were redrawing like different possible covers for the June Batgirl issue, where Barbara was like beating up the Joker somehow, or he was there in the context of not being physically and in some views sexually triumphant over her while she sat there crying and terrified, especially when on the majority of the other covers he may have been like getting one up on the superheroes in some way, but they were not put into that position because of other things on the cover that essentially made it more of a ground where it was just your typical superhero standoff. And it turns out that for once, this actually has gotten a satisfactory resolution, because I know I'm the play-by-play of this at this point. Everyone who's been following this, I mean, even if you didn't mean to, you might have heard of this. It may be redundant at this point. I'm really sorry. But Raphael Albuquerque has put his mature adult pants on, and also his decent person blouse and his cool guy shoes on, and asked DC Comics to pull the June cover in favor of another piece of art for it, and they're complying, which is incredible to me. And so I think that that's really great, and it does a lot to restore my faith in this artist as a decent human being, and also in the fact that, okay, there's a line that hopefully, at least socially, DC editorial, which I know I talk about a lot as if they're like the big bad 1980s movie evil corporation bosses who are ultimate villains, but it's nice to know that there are people who are actually going to take that crap into account for the sake of their own wallets, if not, for the fans. And because it's so important when you've got a piece of media that's going to be going out to people on a widespread, that, I don't know, that you avoid doing stupid crap like this. So I think that's great, and I can't wait to see what the new stuff looks like.
Well, in this case, I think it was DC. 'Cause, I mean, this was a commissioned piece of art. If you
Yeah.
he came out. There was a Bleeding Cool article. So DC told Raphael Albuquerque, this is what we want, and it actually wasn't even his first draft. Apparently, wasn't even that bad. Like, they asked him to add the gun. They asked him to add the crying.
Yeah.
So that was DC, and yeah,
I know that he was complicit in that, and that does not look good at all on either party. But the fact that at some point somebody kind of owned up and was like, we need to change this, also on both sides of it, from Raphael Albuquerque and from some nameless person in DC editorial. It's a relief, if not ultimately comforting.
So there's a couple things on this. One, this was a variant cover. This was not the primary cover that most people were going to see. Two, this is a very significant event in Batgirl's life. There's a changing, point in her life that is very significant in the history of the character, which was not retconned out after the New 52. They acknowledged that this happened.
Well, no, but it was dismissed as casually, as if, it's nothing. It never happened. You don't get that same impact as from...
Also,
not to mention that was never about Barbara's inner turmoil. That was all for Jim Gordon.
Yeah. Also, this is what gave us your favorite version of Barbara Gordon, which is Oracle. So I'm surprised that you're so upset about it. I do agree, however, that it's
you realize that it's like pushing a kid on the sidewalk and they skin their knee and then they get a cute Band-Aid put on it and telling them, see, you wouldn't have that cute Band-Aid if I hadn't pushed you on the sidewalk.
Yep.
I don't like that argument at all with Oracle because you have to take them completely separate. Alan Moore wrote The Killing Joke with no intention of that even being in continuity. That was an out-of-continuity story, and they took it and made a continuity. And it was the creators after they created Oracle and created the good thing out of it.
Right,
so
but basically, the whole Joker, the whole Killing Joke thing is Barbara's version of Crime Alley for Bruce.
It's not Barbara's version of anything.
Okay. And then also, but I agree that it's inappropriate to the age group now that they've changed. Now that they've changed the format of Batgirl, and they're aiming for a much younger age group, it's not appropriate for that. But the whole thing reminds me though that had they not made that veer towards a younger audience, it would basically Barbara should have as much of a relationship with Joker as Bruce does at this point. We should be seeing Barbara dealing with Joker in her books. I'd like to see a really serious story between of those two going at each other at this point. But neither here nor there. And also she's not gagged, nor is she visibly bound. But she is definitely terrified.
No. Get down.
But I agree that this misses the target for the age group. But I do point out that it was not the main cover, it was a variant. And as an older Bat fan, I actually
obviously, but the fact that it exists and the fact that they're like, isn't this great? Buy this cover.
It was just a bad idea, and they could have. I mean, there's somebody on Twitter took the cover and just made a subtle tweak to just her facial expression. Instead of looking at like a victim, she looks pissed off and is glaring at Joker like she's about to kick his ass. After
even that puts it on the same level as the other covers.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a different way they could have still referenced it. It's the characterization is a big problem.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm not a fan of how they've played with Barbara's personality since the restarting of her series with trying to essentially make her into the person that they want Batgirl to be right now while still being able to market Barbara Gordon, and as opposed to, just having a new Batgirl that would actually fit that personality. But the fact that they do this trying to appeal to the audience that they do with, she's just like you, she's every girl, she's fun, she's badass, you can relate to this, right? And then once they have readers who are invested like that, they take it and they're like, now she's a victim, now she's powerless, now she's terrified, now she's helpless before this person who's already hurt her in many ways before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
It's just like you, right?
Yeah, I agree with Justin that the change of facial expression would have gone a long way.
What? Sorry, I'm
like
catching
Justin
like
was
every
saying, like somebody on the internet like basically just altered the facial expression. So rather than her being terrified, she's like angry and like she's like ready to like kick somebody's ass. So
Yeah.
I think that would have been the better way to go.
Yeah, that would have been. I mean, even with the Killing Joke references, that's like not even what's. It's not necessarily what's under debate here as much as the rampant, well, the sexism that was inherent in that scene, the women in refrigerators movement in its entirety, and the fact that, yeah, it was inappropriate in regards to marketing and the victimization. I mean, just all of that are the main bullet points. And yeah, like how Justin said, I mean, even making it look like, oh, this is such BS, I'm about to completely kick his ass, or at least, you know, have a proper superhero villain standoff, like on most of the other covers featuring the Joker and majority male leading superheroes for whatever series. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, there's plenty of coverage of that topic online, so I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it. But if you haven't, there's
for more information,
just
please
Google
see
it. There's a
Google.
lot. Yeah, I linked. There's a pretty good EW Entertainment Weekly article on the whole thing for like non-comic fans as well.
When it gets to Entertainment Weekly, you know it's strong.
Yeah. So that's linked in the show notes if anybody's interested. All right. So my issue of the week. Since we weren't on for a couple weeks, I wanted to talk about iZombie. So this is the new show on. Is it on the CW? I don't even know.
Yeah, it is.
And it's off of a comic, a Vertigo comic from a few years ago that I don't even remember hearing about, and didn't really look into it until the show was announced. And basically, it's from the creators of, or a lot of the creators of Veronica Mars, and it's about a girl that becomes a victim of a zombie like event, and she becomes a zombie, but she's high functioning, and she works at a morgue, and she eats dead people's brains, and when she does that, she gains their memories, some of their skills, and she uses it to solve murders. So it's like it's procedural and it's a little morbid, but because of the tone, it feels very similar to Veronica Mars. It's got that kind of like quippy dialogue, and a lot of the quirky characters, and it's really good. I mean, I've only watched the pilot so far. The second episode was this week, but I'm definitely going to be watching this. Did either of you watch it?
I saw a little bit over my wife's shoulder. It's not my basket of TV shows is already more full than I can keep up with, so it's not something I'm gonna keep watching.
What about you, Sarah?
I would really, really love to watch this series, but much like Walking Dead and Zombieland, I just can't do it. Like, I can't do zombies. Body horror stuff is like my hard line. Like, I can't.
Well, it's not too much that. Like, pretty much they establish, how she became a zombie, and then there's a, like, she takes a brain and she cuts it up and puts it in with top ramen. And
see, I can't even, because that's like Hannibal. I can't do it.
They make it's totally non-bloody. Like, it's the most sterile version of taking apart a brain I've ever seen. And that's like, oh, it's pretty good. How
many of those have you seen?
What do you mean?
I thought it was Aaron who was big on horror.
I'm not big on horror at all. And they don't play that up at all.
Yeah, it's not The Walking Dead. It's very much more like Veronica Mars. It's a procedural show. They establish a body, and then at some point she eats her top ramen, and then they go on and they solve the mystery in 30 minutes, an hour?
It's an hour, yeah.
So yeah, the whole brain part is very brief, and it's very procedural. It's very light, with a lot of like snarky joking and stuff like that. And she basically looks like a goth girl. She's like very pale skin with dark eye stuff and all that. She looks like she's going through a goth phase. The whole premise reminds me a lot of Chew, actually, but I guess this probably came out before Chew.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when this debuted. The Comixology had a sale like last week or so, and I picked up the first trade, but I haven't read it yet. So we'll see how that goes. So that was my issue. Some other news this week. We have Chrononauts, the new Mark Miller and Sean Murphy comic. It's a movie deal, like all Mark Miller comics.
I just saw a Mark Miller movie.
Yeah, like seriously, I think every indie comic he's had since Kick-Ass has got some sort of licensing deal.
Yeah.
So this was going to be your issue before I reminded you about Lazarus. Did you read the comic? Like, what do you think about the news?
No, and that's the thing too. Is like Mark Miller keeps getting all these deals for comics I've never heard of.
Just wait for Youngblood, the movie. It's coming.
Oh.
The team up of the century.
I mean, this is a 4-issue miniseries about they kind of like two good friends that they basically they break mystery mission. Something goes wrong, and so they have one of them goes first. He gets kind of like, oh, something goes wrong, and so the other one goes chasing after him, and that's where the first issue ends. It was all right. The art, I mean, the comic itself is Sean Murphy, and the art is amazing. But I don't know if I'm just fatigued from all these time travel comics, but I mean, I'm not going to read the rest of it, but I'm sure a movie would be cool if they do it right. But they haven't. I mean, they just basically announced that he has a deal. Not much else on it. Next bit of news. We have the first image of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Have you guys seen this yet?
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, this is probably the first image that I've seen from any of these movies where I was like, all right, yeah, you got me right there.
I don't know, man. Aquaman was really good. I was really happy with that one. So, but yeah, this was good too.
I mean, this was like my girlfriend who doesn't really follow this kind of stuff, and she'll watch superhero movies but isn't super into them or anything. And she just messaged me, "Did you see that Jesse Eisenberg picture?" So this is pretty big news. Sarah, what about you? Did you see the picture?
Not yet, no. How bald is he on a scale of, I don't know, Chronicles of Riddick to a hard-boiled egg?
He's pretty bald. He looks like there's a little bit of stubble there, but that just might be his head. But it's
he's to wash his head. Oh God.
Well, it's pretty. He's pretty menacing looking. Just from his facial expression, has me believe that he can be badass Lex Luthor.
It's really strange. Every time they cast somebody for these superhero movies, I'm always like, oh, they don't look right. That's not that person. Or, they don't have the right facial structure. That's not how I ever pictured them. And then most of the time when they get them into costume and they start taking these preview photos, they look amazing. And it just works. So, I mean, I don't know who they've got casting, but damn.
Yeah. Next bit, I wanted to talk about this one. Marvel's launching a new, I don't know if it's an initiative or whatever, they're calling it A-Force Presents. And A-Force originally is one of the Secret Wars tie-in, which it's like an all-women Avengers team. But they're doing collections, collecting, a few of the female-led titles into one trade paperback and releasing that. So, the first one will have Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel and I think Storm and a couple other ones. What do you guys think about Marvel doing this? Do you think it's a viable strategy to get more readers like that?
I think A-Force is an unfortunate title. I can't.
Well, not Secret Wars. This has pretty much nothing to do with Secret Wars. It just they borrowed a little bit of the title from it.
I can't hear A-Force without thinking about a-holes.
I think the A-Team, which is weird because not even my time. That should be
But
you.
I do like the idea that they're starting to, really get serious about attracting female readers and, fleshing out their female characters and giving them an opportunity to stand apart and show what they can do without the male characters watering it down. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think both Marvel and DC are really starting to turn a corner with a lot of this stuff. So with a lot of the diversity issues, I think they're really starting to come around. So
Yeah. The commitment we're seeing is really good. It's amazing and it's refreshing. And I think their only problem is that they see that there's a huge market with female readers, and they don't look at the masses of fandom that are female and the characters that they go for and the sort of fan works that they're putting out and think, okay, well, based off of this stuff that they're really passionate about, what would female fans like to see? And they tend to go over and over more for the girl power, we're gonna just, kick butt and be confident and save the day and that's enough, right? Sort of thing. So, I mean, this looks really promising conceptually. I'm scared to death about Dazzler. I have no idea what's going on. She's in the 70s/early 80s costume, and that was before she ever met Longshot or had Shatterstar, and I don't know what universe they're pulling this from, and I'm scared.
So you're talking about the actual A-Force title, though, right?
Yeah.
So this is completely separate from that. They're just borrowing the title.
Are you...
This is...
I quit the Communicast. How many times do I have to do this? This is ridiculous. I can't
You just have to click on the article, Sarah.
God. Well, no, I'm.
So I mean, Paul did the same.
I'm never on there. I'm never on the internet anymore. All I do is video games. What is my life?
Paul did it too. So this is just borrowing the title. They're taking number ones from a couple female-led titles, and then they're putting them all in one trade paperback. So let me just pull this up if I can.
Oh, God.
But no, I can't do it. I'm on my phone. So. Yeah, so the first issue of this A-Force Presents is going to have Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, the new Thor, Black Widow, She-Hulk, and those 5 things. So they're going to put
number from their female-led series.
So they're going to put the number ones from each of those series into one trade paperback, to try and get more female readers. To me, this is pretty I don't know if confusing, but I don't know that it's going to hit like they want it to. One, because it's weird having a collection like that where it's just a bunch of non-connecting stories for new readers is a little confusing. So you're going to have a bunch of number ones that aren't a complete story, and it's just going to throw it at them. 2, from everything that they've said, which they don't have to release digital numbers, but from interviews and stuff, the young female readers that they're pulling in with Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel and books like that, they're all reading digitally. If you look at Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel sales for traditional physical copies, those 2 books look like they're on the verge of cancellation. But when you take in but Marvel said those 2 are their highest selling digital titles. So putting out a trade paperback to hit that audience just doesn't seem like a good strategy to me, especially one that doesn't have a complete story in it. I think they'd be better off, putting ads and apps and stuff and linking to Comixology or discounting those number 1 issues to $1 and keeping them, at that price.
That's what you should do right there. Yeah, that's
sounds good.
Do. Discount the like you said, discount the first issues to $1, so that the women that are looking into getting into A-Force, can go back and check those out. Yeah, I completely agree. That's exactly the way to go.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how this will work. So we are running a little low on time, but wanted to hit one last bit of news. And that, Sarah, you want to come back?
No, I'm dead, actually.
All right. The last bit of news is we have news that Hugh Jackman and Jennifer Lawrence will be leaving the X-Men franchise after X-Men Apocalypse.
Whoa, wait, what?
What,
I
you
heard
didn't see
about
this?
Jennifer Lawrence. I did not hear about Hugh Jackman. Last time I heard from Hugh Jackman vis-a-vis Wolverine, he was like, I will play this character until I die. Is he dying?
No.
No, who knows?
His heart is on Broadway, dude. He wants to sing and dance.
No, he's
so done with
he would play
Wolverine.
Wolverine until he died. After he saw something else.
I feel like he kind of goes back and forth because I've heard him say, "Oh, we'll see." Like if he's gonna, if he was gonna be in X-Men Apocalypse or whatever a few years ago. So we'll, I'm sure after, because he's got one more solo film and then X-Men Apocalypse, and I'm sure like after one of those is a huge hit, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'll be back," But I mean, it will be. I like him as Wolverine, but it would be nice to see an X-Men movie, like X-Men First Class, where it's not just centered around him like a bunch of comic books. Same issue as the comics.
Yes.
Let's not use Wolverine as a crutch.
Yes.
Let's tell some other stories.
Well, especially now that they're branching out and doing the whole universe thing, they could just do Wolverine movies and do X-Men movies without Wolverine, or have him very lightly involved, or at least just not focus on Wolverine in the X-Men movies. Because he's gonna have his own movies where he can be the center of attention. But maybe they're also kind of like sidelining him because they're bringing in Gambit, which is another huge X-Men character. So it's hard to have them both,
Yeah. So I think it's good, but I want to see what he says after the movies come out, because I think he's gone back and forth.
And Jennifer Lawrence, I mean, like that doesn't surprise me because I don't think they could afford her after her contract.
Yeah, she's kind of been their cash cow too. So once she's out, and if Hugh Jackman leaves as well, they are SOL, and I'm just gonna be so happy.
No, they're not,
because it will no longer be Wolverine and his backup dancers, the X-Men.
Channing Tatum is coming in as Gambit, so.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be watching the hell out of that, like middle-aged mothers have been watching the hell out of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine all these years. But it's time for something new.
I'll tell you what, though, I'm actually kind of hoping that all of this fails so that Fox will give up the rights to X-Men and hand them back to Marvel.
They too will come under the Marvel umbrella once more.
Yes.
Oh, Hugh Jackman will definitely be back if Marvel wants him in an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
He's not saying no to that.
Yeah. Not if he's smart.
So that's.
But I doubt they're asking Tobey Maguire back for Spider-Man either, right? So.
Yeah. So that's it for this week's issues. Since we're running long on time, any of you, are there any TV show episodes you want to talk about this week? I haven't watched any yet.
Nope.
All right. So our CBC Just for Fun topic from Joseph Sokolowski. You can find those every day in the community. The one that I liked from this last week was what comic book character's death hit you hardest and why? Paul, did you think of one yet?
Yeah, so for me it would be Robin, Jason Todd, because I was digging him because when I really got into comics, it was already the Jason Todd era. So he was the one. He was like I got into Batman from the Campy 60s show. I was not old enough to watch it in original showings. I want to be clear about that. I was watching them in movie. So I was familiar with Dick Grayson. Then I started collecting comics. I'm like, who the hell is this Jason Todd person? But then he was my Robin, and then he died off, and I was very surprised because I was not able to follow it through that. So I was kind of coming and going with comics. I wasn't steadily collecting, and all of a sudden he's dead. I'm like, what the hell? I never had a chance to call, never had a chance to register my vote. So yeah, I was pretty upset about that. And then because I was at that age where Robin was my entrance character.
Yeah.
So it's like he's like, oh yeah, I'm in there, I'm with Batman, yeah, and it's like, well, how the hell do I get in with Batman now? I'm not going to be Alfred. So, so yeah, that was pretty rough. But I think that's the only. I can't think of. Yeah, that's the only one I can even think of, really.
All right, Sarah, what about you?
Um, Definitely. It was Suicide Squad issue number 1 in 2011. Immediately, first set of issues they put out after the reboot with New 52 splashed all over everything, where they immediately killed off Savant, who is my baby. He's my favorite character ever in comics. He's just, I guess I have a thing for broken men when it comes to superhero comics, and he just was so perfect and snarky and fragile and great with his dorky long hair and his best friend who was completely in love with him. And they got together the year before the reboot, and it was beautiful and magical and so gay. And they immediately killed him off in issue number 1 of Suicide Squad because they were all being tortured, and they had Savant be the one who caved under torture. It was a big relief a few issues later when they wrote him in again as a, aha, but I was not really dead, you were all being fooled sort of thing. And I still can't believe they let him walk off that comic. But I take partial credit for that due to the vitriolic 6-page angry verbose letter that I wrote DC editorial immediately after that issue came out. I'm looking at it right now, actually. I still have it saved in my files, including the line, and come on, even if he's bi and disabled, Savant's a blonde Caucasian male who was rich before his fall from grace. You guys love that archetype, right? So yeah, it had a lot of vitriol, and I sealed it with some red wax in my Red Lantern ring, and I proceeded to write them a few subsequent letters. It was pretty emotionally intense for me. So yeah, I'm gonna say Savant in 2011 in Suicide Squad.
All right.
That idea has probably got a protective order against you.
I'm sure she wasn't the only one writing those letters.
Yeah.
So mine was another Robin, and I have to go with Damian Wayne, just because that Batman and Robin, Morrison's Batman and Robin, where Dick's Batman and Damian is Robin, is like one of my favorite Batman runs of all time. And his Batman Inc. series wasn't great, but the issue where, and I mean, it was spoiled, before it even happened, but the issue where he did die was so great. There's these interactions between Dick as Nightwing and then Damian as Robin that are just, oh. So yeah, that one hit me probably hardest. Just because, some of the other characters, I wasn't actively reading comics at the time when they passed, so it's just kind of like a footnote, or like I already knew about it. This was, I was actively reading the series, and that's when it happened. So that one's mine.
For me, I think the difference was back when Jason Todd died, people stayed dead.
Yeah.
When Damian died, I'd already decided that I liked the character at that point, but I knew he wouldn't be gone for long.
Right.
So like, okay, all right. Just have to wait.
Jason Todd was gone for a good, 20 years? 25 years?
Long time. So.
Yeah. Damian lasted 2 years? 1 year? I don't know.
I don't know, yeah. Not long.
All right, so.
Perfectly fine with, so I'm happy he's back. So.
All right, so we're way over. Real quick, if you have any other. Real quick, if you have any other non-comics recommendations that you did this week that you want to recommend?
Yes. But it's not really non-comics.
Non-weekly comics.
No. It's comic book related, but it's different because all right. So like basically all the stuff that we've been talking about has like led me to something that I was already thinking about on my way home today, and we're just gonna call this hashtag Steal This Idea Marvel. All right. So we're talking about like Dead, and we've talked in the past about how like death doesn't mean anything in comic books and all this stuff, and like continuities, they're constantly trying to fix continuity because they've got time travelers all over this place and multiple universes and all that stuff. So here we go, Marvel. Pen and paper, take this down. This is your next two giant crossovers, okay? This is your course correction. All right, so what turns out is like the forces of chaos, or like the embodiment of chaos, because Marvel's really big on these like galactic embodiments, which is really cool. So the embodiment of chaos has basically imprisoned the embodiments of death and time, right? Unbeknownst to the rest of the universe. And so they managed to, at the very start of this thing, like they managed to, like, they were like freeing themselves from their bonds and like correcting all the stuff that chaos is allowed to happen. So the first ones that gets released is time, and the first thing that they do is basically correct all of this broken timeline that all of these time travelers have done. And what happens is so it just basically this wave across the universe, and the Guardians of the Galaxy show up on Earth. They get they get ahead of the wave. And they let everybody know what's coming. So then you have like a year as this wave is coming for like the individual issues for people to come to grips with. They're trying to fight against it, but like in the end they have to realize that there is no hope. So basically, like, you have to say goodbye to all of your time travel characters. All of the time travel characters are going back where they came from. So it's this train coming down the tracks that they can't avoid. So like Bishop goes back, Cable goes back, but Cable would actually just go back to his parents. Like they never would have been able to put him into the future, so they would have had to raise him themselves. So like all of these people, all the time travelers go back. So then that's like the first big crossover, right? So now we've corrected the whole time thing, and the next one is death. So every character that has died and been resurrected will be dead. Period. End of story. They will die again, and it's kind of like those movies. I know you did. I know you did. What are those ones where it's like they're fighting death, basically?
Final Destination.
Final Destination. Yeah. So you get the pathos of like these characters. Like it's like they know that this is coming, and they look at their loved ones and their friends or whatever. Like you're on the list, and then plus the characters themselves. Like, what do I do? It's like, I know I've got like a year left of my life, and that's it. And then, so then the wave hits, and then everybody who's ever actually died and come back dies and stays dead. And so after all of this, you have this like new status quo in the Marvel Universe that I think would be really interesting to see. So there you go, Marvel. Steal this idea. It's all yours.
All right.
You must never write for anything. I'm dead. Putting cups are my only joy in life.
So, Sarah, how about you? You have a non-weekly comics something
Dragon
to
Age,
recommend?
Age of Dragons, Dragon Age 2, The Reckoning, and Dragon Age Inquisition. Dear God, shut up about the religion in your universe. And also, Paul Christopher is a monster.
All right, so mine, I've been working through my backlog of digital comics that I've picked up, and there's a Comixology Submit comic that came out a couple weeks ago called Broken Telephone. It's around 300 pages, and it's like 12 or 13 little mini stories that are all centered around one event. Kind of like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs style storytelling, but each little story is drawn by a different artist. It's a really cool book. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's only on Comixology. So, and I think it was a Kickstarter, so I don't know if there's physical copies somewhere, but you can definitely pick it up on Comixology. So that about does it for us. You can find links to all of our episodes on comicbookcommunicast.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/comicbookcommunicast. Our audio version is on iTunes and RSS, so you can subscribe and rate us there as well. For those of you just listening, that sound is Sarah eating pudding. If you want to watch live, we record every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, so join us next week. Thank you and have a good night.
And if you want Paul Christopher's autobiography, look in the Necronomicon.
Good night, everybody.
Mm.